Good evening. My name is Mike Haney, and welcome to another edition of 60 Minutes in Black America. We have a awesome show for you today, talking about the status of Black males in this country. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good evening again. My name is Mike Haney, and thank you for watching 60 Minutes in Black America. Today's show promises to be a great show, particularly for me. I've been looking forward to this subject all day, all my life, where we get an opportunity to have a panel of Black males from around this country, as far away as Oakland, California. We'll be talking with you today about, what the status is, and I gotta say, sometimes it gets I get self-confident, I get very self-confident about this in terms of, the status of me as a Black male, the status of Black males in America, because we know that the playing field is not necessarily an even playing field in this country. We know that. We know it's a fact that it just isn't necessarily an even playing field. And why is that the case? Why is it the case that we tend to have poor performance academically, educationally? Why is it that we seem to have more incarcerations than any? Well, President Trump, believe it of all people, in 2020 signed bipartisan legislation that was sponsored in the House by Frederica S. Wilson, and in the Senate, believe it or not, by all people, Marco Rubio, both of these politicians from the state of Florida. Both of these politicians have legislation in Florida studying the social plight of Black males, because they realize that Black males have been mistreated in this country for a long, long time. And it's not to say that all Black males are in jail, all Black males are on drugs, all Black males have children out of wedlock. That's not to say it at all, and that's not what it is that we're talking about. We're talking about the significant Black males that you will see today, and I could have had 3,000. I could have had 5,000. I could have had 10,000 Black males. There's one, Rico Crawley, always out there advocating for people in his city, on this show today, talking about all the good, positive things that they're doing and could be doing better if the playing field was even. And so what is the playing field? What does an uneven playing field look like when we talk about driving while Black? And you know what? I got to say, I know some of my white friends, and I call them friends, some of my white friends, some of my white brethren, oh, here goes Mike again, talking about that Black thing, talking about the atrocities and the inequalities and inequities of Black people, because the persistence that we have to go at this because of the data and stat that this country produces that shows that there's a difference in how we are treated as a gender and as a people, comparatively speaking, particularly in the year 2022, is such that we have got to continue to talk about it. And believe me, I get as frustrated and as tired speaking of it as anybody that doesn't want to hear it anymore. But we're commanded to continue to have these conversations, continue to push the envelope as to why there are disparities between me and all others because of the color of my skin. And that is a known fact. So recently, out in California, Oakland, one of our Hispanic sisters, former city council person, president at that, called the young black boy a monkey, right? And we can go on and on and on and on and on in terms of these insensitivities, not just among the everyday ones that we see or people, but about the leadership that we have in positions that continue to look at these disparities and do nothing. So what is it that we expect of our politicians? And so we have someone from California to talk about what's happening out there. We got someone down in Texas to talk about what's happening in Texas. We have someone in Florida to talk about what's happening in Florida, and someone in Maryland, Washington, D.C. area to talk about that. Because we said that this show does what? It's supposed to compare our communities so that we can get on the same page in terms of our conversation. Hey, so Joe Biden just recently exonerated, freed, declared that there would be no more records for millions, as an example, millions of people, particularly black males, that were arrested wrongly because of marijuana. Marijuana years ago in the 90s. I know in the state of Maryland, as in many states around this country, they have a referendum now to make marijuana legal, right? So when we talk about disparities and the reason that this commission on the social status of black men and boys introduced for the purposes of looking at policies in this country that will put on an equal field black men and boys, particularly black men and boys. And as we begin to delve into some of the data, you'll understand why. Why the focus not on black women, not on brown, not on white, on black men and boys. So when President Biden pardoned millions or hundreds of thousands of blacks from prison sentences that they had gotten for selling marijuana, using marijuana, and now all of a sudden, in the year 2022, we have the legalization as a question on many referendums around this country. Why couldn't the playing field be, as we look at the fact that we have been shut out, as we have legalized marijuana in this country, from owning dispensaries, being able to grow it, and the hundreds of thousands of black men and boys that were locked up atrociously during the Nixon, Reagan, even the Clinton administration. Why couldn't we have been given a chance, if we want to look at policy that's fair, that all of a sudden in their communities, they can now own a legal marijuana dispensary or business. So this is one example of the social opportunity, if we're going to be fair and look at what's right and rectify wrong, to what we locked up illegal. So now all of a sudden we say it's legal, but we don't become part of the game to sell it, so that our communities from an economic viability standpoint have a chance, when that's what they were doing on the street when they were selling nickel bags and OZs and garbage bags of marijuana. And now you can walk into a store in my community and the person behind the counter selling it does not look like me. Now, what's wrong with that picture? And then let's talk about education, right? And so we're going to get a perspective from all of these black men. And as I said, we could have had 5,000 in terms of what it is in their communities around the country they're suffering. I saw something recently about education in this country, the average cost of education in this country being $60,000 a year. $60,000 a year, and my average wage as a black man is barely $40,000. Now, how can I afford to have a family or send a child to college when the average cost of going to college is more than what I make on an annual basis? And we just continue to talk and have conversation, but nothing changes but the prison pipeline from the third grade, where they determine how many prisons they will build based on the average number of black males in third grade. That's a fact. That's a study. And we continue to have these conversations. So enough of my diatribe for a minute, because as I said, this conversation is emotional for me and emotional for many as we talk the 21st century about continually the same issues. But God commands us to be persistent in our march to justice, regardless of whether the person across from me that doesn't look like me wants to hear it or not. I am commanded to continue to press the envelope in fairness and equality, especially in the United States of America. So let's bring our panelists on and get their perspective of what's happening in their communities, in their country. And these are all great men. These are great men. There's a bunch of us great men, but how much greater and how much good could they do if they had more means to do so? So we have Art, Doug, Blackshear out there in Oakland, California. Doug, thank you so much for joining us today from Oakland, California, man. And I know you're out there boxing and fighting them out there now, man. And we're going to hear more about it. And we've got Jonas.
What up?
In the Sunshine State.
Oh, man, enjoying it.
Jonas, man, thank you so much, man. And your two of your representatives, Congresswoman Wilson and Senator Marco Rubio. And I can't wait to hear your perspective on Marco Rubio, because I got to tell you, I was shocked that he was one to have this. And he said it out of his mouth. And he's going against Val Demings now, right? Val Demings, the sister, former chief of police for the state, for Orlando, city of Orlando, former chief of police, right?
Yep.
Marco Rubio said that the disparity in this country with black males is atrocious to a point where we have to do something about it. And he was one of the staunch conservative Republicans admitting and sponsoring. Oh my, are we in trouble? Or are we on the trajectory to finally beginning to see change, and what does change look like? Then we've got Oren down there in the great state of Texas by way of Baltimore, right? Because you're from Baltimore originally, right?
Yes, I am. Yes.
And you went from Baltimore to Texas, man. And I can't wait to talk about Texas, man. Right down there near the border, man, as we continue to say that we don't let these folks come over, right?
Yeah.
They let everybody do the work. What's going on, America? But yet you want to pay me minimum wage, $15 or $900 less a week than white women make to do the work that you don't want to bring over the border, those that we could use to augment our economic system. So we're going to talk about Texas. And then we got Luvan Dungy, right? Yeah, Luvan Dungy the fourth. Let me get that correct. Luvan, thanks for joining us, man. I wish I could see you a little better, man. I know you are a brother, but I know that there's some light that is seen between you. Luvan is here in the great state of Maryland, and Luvan has a powerful story. So, gentlemen, let's start off by talking about education in America. You heard me mention the fact the cost of education is almost double what it is at the average wages of black men in America. Is there a value to education that is costing us as a people? And let's ask Luvan. Luvan, let's ask you that, because you have a story when it comes to your education. What is your thought about education in the black community, Luvan?
Woo! How long we have?
You got 30 seconds. Just kidding, man. Hey, we're going to take this conversation for the rest of our life, man. It is not going to be solved now.
Thank you, Mike, for having me first. Thank you for everyone else that's here with us. Education is a powerful vehicle. However, it depends on what and how we're talking about education. Is it education to get through this secular system? Is it education of where we've lived and where we've been raised? Is it the education that our parents give us? Or is it a combination of all things so that we can navigate the system that we really aren't educated about? So education is a huge thing. It's really huge. And I see it.
It was important to you, right? Education was important to you because, you got your BA when you got out of prison, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. It was important to me because I understood the parameters of the game. I understood that once I was released from the penitentiary, I first had to go and get a GED, which would allow the secular education to grow. But, Mike, there were two tracks of education that I had to learn very swiftly. I had to get through the college. I had to get to the bachelor's, in the same time educating myself to the industry that I wanted to participate in. I was told, understand my business and know my business. And the only way I could relate to that was based on the education of being committed to learning.
Wow, that's powerful, man. I want to get back to you a bit later about the value of education as you had to retool your life after having gone through what you went through, and if that's part of the reason why you did it. But Orrin, down there in Texas, Orrin, what's the value of education down there in Texas, man? What's the value of education in your life? And tell us a bit more about yourself, man.
Yeah, I'll start here. My family and I, we've been here a year and a half, so we're new to how Texas runs. Amazing state. I'll start off by saying that. I think education is something that I always start first with knowledge, man. I made a point, and I like to jot notes down. So I said, something that my stepfather said to me years ago, we got to get back to wanting to seek knowledge for the sake of itself. Become more of a sponge again for the purpose of wanting to just know all that we can know versus allowing ourselves to be limited by just whatever is shared and whatever is put out in front of us. So that's how I teach my kids, man. My wife and I have 5 kids. My kids range from 11 to 22. And I tell them, just remain a student to life. Do not expect what it is that you will not provide for yourself. And by providing for yourself is put yourself in position to just be a sponge to life, be a student, always remain someone that's willing to learn and listen. I'm very big on the scripture, James 1:19, be quick to listen and slow to speak so that you're slow to anger. So always position yourself to say, you know what, I can learn. Despite if I like what's being said to me, despite if I like how it's being presented to me, I can still learn from it. I can either take from it and make it do what I wanted to do, or I can choose to take it and put it to the side.
Hey, or let me ask you, man, how old are you?
I am 45.
You're 45 years old, man, and what's experience in terms of education, the formality of it, in terms of, as we spoke of, a $45,000 average salary for a black man and a $65,000 annual tuition bill. Is there a disconnect there where you, as a father of how many do you have?
5.
You're a father of 5.
Yes.
And maybe you're independently wealthy, I'm not sure, but is education such a value that you preach to your children the need for a higher education? And how as a family, how as a black man do you make that happen?
So great question. So I'll start here, and I'll be very transparent. When my wife and I were first starting out building our family, I was telling my kids as they were growing, I said, we invest in you now for you to invest in yourself later. So what I mean by that is we made sacrifices very early to put our kids in private school, where granted, when we relocated here, everyone is in public right now. But we did that purposefully, man, so that they could be able to lock in and be able to have less distractions, be able to see themselves as an individual without a lot of the extras, as I call it. But my biggest thing that I preached was we invest in you now for you to invest in yourself later. And this is what I mean. I have one college student right now. She's in her senior year at Mount St. Mary's. And it took her a minute to grasp a hold of what it was that I meant by that. But I was spot on with saying, listen, we're not paying for college. You know, you put yourself in a position to get yourself scholarships.
Were you saying that you weren't paying for it? Were you saying that you can't pay for it, or was it a combination of both of them?
I'll say, let's just say a combination of both. But I just was,
I hear you.
I was very adamant on saying we're not going in debt for college, because college isn't for everybody. I'm very big on when it comes to what it is that you want to do in life. College doesn't have to be the tunnel that you go through to get to where you're trying to go.
Wow.
Back to trades. We need to get back to. I mean, I'm gonna be very honest with you. I met a gentleman at T-Mobile yesterday, and he was speaking about the what he's been able to do without a college education, just being in sales, just being willing to put in the work.
Hey, there's no doubt about that, man. There's no doubt about that. Well, when we look at our system in America, and we look at the inequality of salary compared to those that are able to go, because of generational wealth, et cetera. And Jonas, we're going to talk to you about that generational wealth and what you think about that, and those that go making more money. Because when you look at the disparity of black men that make over $100,000, and why is $100,000 the mark? Because $100,000 a mark. That's what they said. And you know, less than 30% of black men make over $100,000 annually a year. Okay, so we can go data. And this is a combination of our data and their data, particularly when you talk about education. A master's pays you this, a doctorate pays you this. We don't talk about the debt. Jonas, you're a younger brother, right? So, you know, you are the CEO of your own company, right?
Yes, sir.
And you do a lot of good out here in the world, in the community. What was the importance of education to you? And how did you get that? How did your family inspire or fund or pay for your ability to be where you are today? Or did you have to do it yourself?
I think for me, I think my story is kind of different, because I came from a country where education is a privilege, because not everyone has access to it. I was born in Haiti in 1990, came to the United States in 99. And I think in my early childhood phase, I really didn't understand the value of being in the United States and the trauma and the unadvantage that a lot of people that look like myself go through. And I look at the importance of education, not just from being in Florida, as someone that travels the United States. I think it sits with equity. And the reason I say equity is understanding self-value. Leaders that are here nowadays know how to read. So a leader has to be a reader. And you look at a lot of black men were restricted from reading back in the days, from the Jim Crow era to Black Code to where we're at today. We're looking at things from a demographic that might not help us get to the next step. So when you look at it from my perspective, as someone that's 32, that have built a organization that has over 400 corporate reps out there, we're in over 20-some thousand different repair facilities across the country. I didn't do it by, like the gentleman said, going to college and following the blueprint that they were putting me in position to follow. It was challenging the narrative and listening to leaders like yourself, Mike, that got me to where I'm at. And I look at it now, one of the biggest problem is we're missing three structures, right? You have habit, you have influence, and then you have a tradition. Habit is something that is not happening in the household, where we are not in a habit of putting education first. That becomes where we are not influenced by people that go out to get these degrees. It's not a cool thing to get a degree now. It's not a cool thing to be educated. If you're educated in the black community in certain places, you sound like a white man, or you sound too proper. And then it becomes a tradition, because if you have that mindset, and like myself, I have 3 kids, and I'm teaching my kids those same mentalities. When they teach their kids, it become a tradition. So when you're in that third cycle, in that tradition of not caring about education, you lose the 3 cycles: expense, gross, and profit. Anytime money comes in, anytime money goes out, it's a business. So financial literacy to me is huge. And
so financial literacy.
Financial literacy is where it's at. You know, teaching the kid to be able to provide a service or provide a product is huge. All you need from anything is just the amount of people. And we're in a position now where we need more leaders. We need more individuals like yourself that's going to step up to the plate and bring awareness to something that is in dire need in our culture today?
Well, I'm going to ask Doug Blackshear, because, he's a leader to me. He's out there raising hell in Oakland as an educator. So we're talking education, but let's talk about educator. And when I say raising hell, he's telling people in front news of the paper to resign. So if you all don't think that there's a tie-in between the East Coast and the West Coast and what Doug's doing out there, we thought that we'd have to send a rescue boat out there for him about a year ago because they were going to run him out of Oakland. But I think that he got them educated. Doug, what's happening out there in Oakland? What's happening in the Oakland Unified School District? What's happening with the education of our people? And is it important? And I'm asking you 4 questions in one. Is it important that us as black men, 6 of us, 5 of us, 7 of us, if we include Jeremiah and we include Leon in the back in the studio, to be having these conversations, man?
Well, first off, I want to say welcome to all the gentlemen who took time out of their Sunday to get involved in this important conversation as it relates to education and equity in the United States. Because as we all know on this platform, it is not equal, and it has not been equal. And the government, yes, the government is a huge part of that. In Oakland, California, here to answer your question, I got involved with politics about 8 years ago with my attorney, Pamela Price, John Scott, Bill Cohan, and Liza DeFree, when I was suing a multi-billion-dollar company for racial discrimination and running me out of business. But to that end, what I found is we as black people, we listen to these white people and these Uncle Tom black people and Auntie Tom black people who are running our communities every 2 to 4 years, begging for our votes. Now, after they get elected, think about it. You don't see them. Government money is for the people, not just white people, not just Asian people, and not just Hispanic people, but for all people. But we have a government in Oakland that perpetuates the lack of resources in areas that are inundated by black and brown people. Now, let me break that down a little further. I graduated from Castlemont High School, one of the toughest schools in Oakland. I had to fight every day to keep my to keep everything. Then when I left school, I went to San Francisco State. I was totally unprepared, academically disqualified. Moved on, got developed my own niche in life, and then when I have one daughter. Her name, and she says, "Dad, you always embarrass me." But her name is Irie. And I won't go with her government name. We call her Irie. Irie in Jamaican means happy. I made a promise to myself that I would not let her go through what I went through in the Oakland public school. So I paid $500 plus every month to put her in a private school. She maintained a 3.8 to 4.0 through elementary, junior high school, and she graduated from St. Joe. St. Joe is the same school that Jason Kidd graduated from. She got a scholarship at USF, University of San Francisco, and she went on to get her master's degree in business administration and sports management. But I say all that to say this, America, and specifically Black America. The system is designed to keep Black people out of making money. They get a few token Negroes. And if you look at me on Facebook, you can find me on Art Blackshear or LinkedIn, Art Blackshear. I break it down to simplicity. First, I go talk to the politicians who are perpetuating this continuous racist and full-fledged attack against Black people. Now, why, and I want your audience to think about this. Why is it that Black people are on the bottom of every list in America, whether it be health, economics, education, equity, Only thing we're on the top of is prison. We're number one there, but that's by design. That is by
But you know,
design.
that's interesting. That's interesting you say that, Doug. You know, and you know, we're going to narrow that conversation down to black men because the point of it is that if we look at it biblical, the man is supposed to be the head of the household, etc. And how can we feel good when you destroy the household with prison or inequality, right? And you decimate the family structure, right? And we're not saying that there's not things that we need to do in our own community, which we're doing, because as I said, there's tens, hundreds of thousands of us out here that are doing some awesome, phenomenal things. But let me give you a data statistic as given by a white think tank that says 40% or better of white people see black males as violent.
Well,
Black males is violent.
let me just say that goes back to the late 50s and the early 60s. The government designed a program called welfare, where the black woman, in order for her to get aid because the black man couldn't get a good paying job, she had to kick the black man out and say that she was a single woman with kids. The government is masterminding in front of our own eyes. It's not an illusion. Open your eyes and look at it. They don't want, as you have carefully illustrated, they don't want black men to make money, to have access to education. And as the cannabis issue, many hundreds of thousands of black men are sitting in jail or have sat in jail, and white men are coming to our own community and making hundreds, millions of dollars on the same product that put black men in jail and tore up their lives and put them in a position where they couldn't get jobs.
If there's one issue that we ought to take up in arms as a people, because what we want to leave the viewers with tonight when we finish is an action plan by blacks in addition to our persistence of the conversation, no matter how distasteful other people feel it is, because they're tired of hearing us and our persistency. The cannabis or medical marijuana is one mantle that we should be on based on the hours, the days, the years that our black men have suffered and served in this penal system. We should have been given a 30-year head start before anybody was allowed to sell anything, and in particular our communities. Luvon, I want to get back to you, right? Because you've gone through the penal system and you're a very, very, very successful business person. And I think we may have lost Luvon there for a second. So we're going to go to Jonas, right, in terms of your business. And we'll get back to Luvon because he has a compelling story as well. Jonas, at your age, what are you, 32, 35, something like that? You're 32 years old, right? You get back to schools, right? You do a lot of good around. Your business is a national business, right?
International now.
International business.
We have a school in Haiti with 277 kids.
Wow.
And we've been able to do that through corporate citizenship. And I think that was one of the biggest assets that I picked up in Baltimore in my 4 years there. I had Baltimore, Chicago, and some parts of Missouri that I could have chose to move to as a way to, because remember, I come from a different country. I don't see.
Yeah, you come from a different country. So do we all. When we go back far enough and look at it, so we're not gonna eat that one up. Correct. Because I went back to the country that I came from, that I was illegally brought over here to, right?
Right.
And you were legally brought. You had a choice. You got on a plane or a boat.
Well, my mom and my dad brought me here. So.
Yeah, you had a choice. Many of us didn't have a choice, so it ain't none of our country, really, even theirs when they look at it. But my question to you, if you were with your brilliance and your business astuteness was white, what do you think you would need in order to really take that to $1 billion company, which it probably would be if you weren't stigmatized by the fact that it's the color of your skin. And whether you believe so or not, I know you have. But do you think that you would be in a different situation if you were given a more leveler playing field and more access to capital?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I can tell you that's what the digital real estate market is doing now to the government is the ability to run a business without any overhead for those that are educated to understand the magnitude that the digital real estate world brings. But I think, like the brother said on earlier, it's black code. If black code's out in the public, you can read about it. The hindrance of being able to be married, the hindrance of being able to be a voter, could own a gun. I mean, think about it. If you were a guy that was fit, you were able to run 5 miles and you could fight, and somebody came to the playing field with a gun, what does all those things that you had physically, the physical ability to fight, does that mean anything? No, it's the same translation to today. If you have the physical access to go to a bank and say, hey, I want 100,000 and here's my business structure, and they gave that to you and you made 100 million and you gave them back that money they gave you, it's a win-win. But for me as a black man, I walk into the bank, the first thing they say is, why do you need that for? That's the first question. And that question can be in a restaurant setting. Why are you eating here? Why do you drive that particular car? Why does Mike get access to own or be on a radio show? It's the voice. So I think Jim Crow has, morphed to a bigger problem for Black America than meets the eye, because now it becomes a mental thing that we're trying to overcome. And
how does that make you feel?
Oh, I mean, if I acted how I felt, I don't think I would be able to be on any camera, So I think, we have.
What does it make you do in relationship to what it is that you see that's happening? You have on your website, because I've studied you all of you, to what is out there about you. You talk about diversity and inclusion. You talk about diversity. How does a Black business look diverse?
Hiring all culture. It's in my core values, diversity.
Yeah, that ain't diverse. That's real. And I'm going to let you off the hook, because I'm going to go to Oren and let you think about that for a second. When we talk about, real opportunity, to begin to move the needle and be persistent in our conversations without fear.
That's true.
And what hits are we willing to take as a people? What hits? You saw that Lamar was unwilling to take a hit and he threw that daggone interception today, right? So, when we talk about proverbial hits and real hits, and you're a former wrestler, football player, Jonas, right? What hits are we willing to take? Maybe the hit of being here, because maybe this is the most dangerous moment in America right now, with 5 Black men having conversation positive about being persistent and the value of education across this country. We're in Oakland, we're in Texas, we're in Florida, we're in Maryland, collaborating on what it looks like and what does diversity look like in our businesses. So, Oren, when you talk about that, as someone that I listened to what you said that you told your daughter, right? You told your daughter that she's got to get it if she wants it, right? Whereas, Jim Bob was able to say, hey, you can go and you can take 6 or 7 years at $70,000 a year, and we'll just keep funding it, because Granddad left us in real good shape, right? How do you begin to educate our community as a power of example, right? I know you've got a show. You've got a very good show during the course of the week where you talk very spiritual stuff, right?
Yeah.
But is that part of the spiritual desire of God to see us all on equal footing? And how do you carry that out?
Well, as I say sometime on the show, man, you threw me a oop, as we say, and I'll dunk it. For me, from a spiritual perspective, man, I choose to see things as the Lord, I feel as though, would have for me to see it. So a lot of things that are concerned to many people, I choose not to let them be my concern, man. I choose to put all my faith in God and trust that what it is that He would have for us to have as just a people, as far as a human race, it will play itself out in time. I wrote a note, and I want to say this, man. It's to increase growth, we have to decrease what is counterproductive. And I think a lot of times we have conversations and we share our thoughts about things. A gentleman with one of the comments said, we've talked about the problem, so let's discuss the solution. and in discussing the solution is, what is it that is our concern? Right now, granted, we're talking about it here tonight, but what really is the concern? What really is that? What really is it that we're expecting or that we're desiring? So to me, I find it to be something that's more of an internal issue than an external concern. I think it's something that we have to begin to discuss internally if we want to see change. It's a lot. I think Jonas was touching on it a little bit before. When it comes to education within the Black community, we have to make it cool again to be smart. We have to make it fun again to be educated and be knowledgeable and be wise versus just be street. I would venture to say possibly all of us on here have a background to some degree that if we chose to share it would have some of what would tickle the ear of those that like to hear the drama. But let's talk about those things that really will help us move ahead, help us get to a place of where we can see true growth and true productivity. And I think it has to do with dealing with some of what it is that really plagues us internally.
Powerful. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And to your point, because God's desire is he died for us on the cross, right? Carrying the message of persistence, right? Because like you say, it's not about talking all the time. It's about doing. But if you don't talk enough and have the conversation, then you can't discuss what it is that you need to do for. We already said that one thing could be done is that there's a moratorium on who sells marijuana in this country, and it should be given to Black people. Okay, so we're not talking reparations. We already talked about a moratorium on education. Okay, even Senator Rubio said that the disparity among Blacks, particularly in education, is such that maybe there's a need to ensure that all that want to go to school can go to school on the government's dime as a result. So that's a policy change. So marijuana, education, so that you don't have to tell your daughter she can go get it. Maybe she can take 7 years to get 4 years in terms of the degree, because that's an equality. But when you talk about, to your point of not continuing to exasperate conversations, that's the problem, I believe, that we continue to kind of want to brush it off because we got that beautiful piano in the background that Jonas has, you know what I'm saying? And that nice, middle fireplace that he has. So all of a sudden we got real comfortable. Yeah. And we don't want to disturb our friends, our friends that don't look like us, by continually bringing it up.
Can I touch on that for a second?
Go for it.
I think a lot, and I totally understand what you're saying. I know many feel that way, and I choose to kind of stay to the other side of it in regards to putting in the work. Granted, like you said, the conversation, yes, it needs to be had, but I think that if we really want to see change, we have to put our feet to the pavement and get it done.
So I'm gonna give you another 30 seconds because that was the initial question I asked you. What does the work look like? And give me the tangible aspects of your work. Okay. Right? That shows, to your point, the work.
The work is to teach children when they're young. I won't be able to fully quote this, but Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, said something in reference to, either he was quoting, if we teach boys when they're young, we do not have to rebuild them when they become men. Something like that. You can find it out there, right? So we have to.
Did you use the founder of Chick-fil-A? Because I don't want to go back in his history and talk about his anti-Semitic, racist ways. So, but we're going to go beyond that. Because you got to be ready for this conversation when you just throw stuff out there. But Chick-fil-A's founder is, right? And you're from Baltimore. I'm going to try to eat you up here.
Let me tell you, I'm a sponge to life, man. So I use information that I find to be beneficial from anyone. So I don't limit it coming from. I don't have a heaven and hell to send.
So you say listen to the message, not the messenger. Is that what you're saying there?
Indeed. The only messenger I'm focused on is Jesus Christ. But when it comes to the message, in regards to what can I use, what can I take from it, and what can I, how can I apply it, right? So, like I mentioned, in regards to let's teaching our children again, in regards to what is it of importance to know who they are and how it is that we would like to see them, get ahead. The conversation we have sometime in regards to the playing field not being even, I think we do our children a disservice by telling them that sometimes. I think if we put them in position to say, listen, in education, I think one of the gentlemen mentioned earlier about the power of an education. It's paramount. Knowledge is paramount. It can take you anywhere around this entire world. But first, you have to put yourself in position with the desire to want to learn. And it doesn't only happen in the classroom. You don't
Yeah,
see.
matter of fact, maybe it starts at home. And this is a great conversation. I want to play a tip because we're going to go to the family structure. We're going to go to where it is that we believe it all starts, the family structure, relationships between man and woman, etc. And I want to play this clip of what was said by the Congresswoman Frederica S. Wilson, who sponsored the legislation in the House on the social impact of black males, black men, and black boys. But she said this during a hearing, and it kind of threw me aback. Could we play a clip from Congresswoman Wilson, please?
Yet about poor black women who will be saddled with so many unwanted children because of the assault on a woman's right to choose. So we're talking about the whole realm of this conference has been about fatherless children, the father absent. Well, we're going to exacerbate that with what we're doing. So I actually am writing a bill for contraception for black men. And I'm not going to say all men, because this is a commission on the social status of black men and boys. And
Hey, cut that. I heard enough.
had
I heard enough. Cut that. Hey, so this is what she is saying, right? This is what Congresswoman Wilson is saying. I think someone mentioned a politician. And let me say, first of all, Congressman Wilson and I will be having conversation this week. Senator Rubio wanted to be here tonight, which would have been a surprise, but he's got too much going on in Florida with the floods, his own reelection against Val Demings, and he has committed to coming the first of next year. Congresswoman Wilson and I will be talking this week and playing that excerpt to talk about this conversation tonight, next week, if it happens, okay? But she said, I believe she said something about birth control for men. Did you all hear that?
You heard it clearly.
So let me ask you, Luvon, do we need contraceptive for men so that we can stop having all these babies, as she said, that now that black women don't have access, and black women have more abortions as a number. We're not talking as a percentage of the population, as a number. Black women have more abortions than any other racial group in this country, right? And she said, so that black women that now don't have access to abortion, then we need to give men contraception. What does that mean to you, Luvon? Did that make sense? That's our politician saying that.
Well, Mike, I've been listening, and you know me, you know my past, you know my history. I don't do a lot of talking. I'd rather do a lot of doing. I don't understand. We have to talk to, we have to teach, we have to educate in all the realms. I don't believe playing in their field. I believe figuring out how to build your own field.
Uh-huh.
I don't believe in buying in. I believe build your own. And Mike, you know me. Their rules don't apply. It's almost like when you go to your doctor and she measures your BMI and she tells you to point to the where your weight and your BMI is, and we always are obese and overweight. We're not built to do what they're built to do. So I wish that the conversation would be, what are we built to do? And let's do that. Contraception. I believe the conversation around that should be, how can men be more respectful and responsible for themselves first? How can we raise ourselves to be conscious enough to respect the female? How can we respect, again, the God of their understanding? How can we respect that there is a moral value that we're allowing somebody else to control? I believe that the moment we don't figure those things out, we will always be led by. I was told a long time ago that if you don't make a decision will be made for you.
Yeah.
All of the conversations that we have are based on the decisions that are made for us. We collectively need to get together and make decisions ourselves and run that race.
Wow, that's powerful, man. And here we are together. Here we are together, to your point, to your value, and you are a power of example, right? You figured out a way to do good and to take care of your business so that you can be self-supporting, self-sufficient, and a philanthropist, right? A philanthropist in your community with what it is that you do. But here we are together having this conversation and stimulating some interest on what someone else has said. And Doug, what did you get out of that snippet that we need to control contraception or have contraception so we can control abortions now since our women, because statistically and data, this is what they're telling us. So does that make sense?
Oh, well, no, it does not. But let's just get to the core of the problem. And that is, we need to start vetting these politicians who are representing us and making these crazy, crazy accusations and inaccurate statements. One of the things that's killing us in America, specifically Black people, we are electing buffoons and puppets, and they're out here saying they represent all of it. We need to start vetting who's running and who's representing us, and that way we'll have clarity and we'll get more of that government money that's given to all people in America except Black people in America.
So let me ask you something. Let's do a hypothetical. Warnock or Herschel Walker? Doug.
Yes. Warnock.
One or yes, none? Because they both have, issues when we talk about it. Warnock or Herschel Walker?
Warnock is definitely my choice. I promote him on my podcast too.
Did you see the debate?
I saw enough to make my stomach turn, and with Herschel Walker and his inability to communicate effectively, the buffoonery that I seen, I had to just flick it.
Who's the best politician we have in this country right now that looks like a Black male? Who's the best Black male politician in this country right now?
Byron Donalds.
Who?
Byron Donalds.
Where and who is that?
He's a congressman in Florida.
What does he do?
District 90. He's a congressman.
Why do you say he's the best? What has he done for you?
Because you got to go through something and understand in order to understand a Black man. I think that's the first thing. We're asking well, I think the best way to word it, we're asking people that's never been Black to do things for Black people. So we start at home with voters education. And with voters education, we will understand to teach the kids the power of a vote, because the power of a vote is, I learned this in Baltimore playing golf with Al Wilson. He said, Jonas, what's the definition of thinking? And I didn't have an answer. I just said, well, thinking is a process. He said, yeah, it is. You're right. But it's an organized process. We don't observe these politicians. We don't evaluate them to make that decision to go on the ballot and vote. We just vote based on emotions. And that's been something for years and years and years and years. We've seen it in plain daylight with Trump, with the words he said. And people made decisions based on their feelings, based on the things that's going on, not in front of them, based on social media. Because the things that happen in Texas and the things that happen in New York might have the same feeling, but it's not the same scenario. So just to go back to what the gentleman said, I think everything kind of leads down to Black code. If you were not, and privileged to do something, you're going to fight your whole life to try to get it. And then when you get it, were you educated on how to maintain it? So I believe, understanding who these politicians are and voting the right person based on experience, not based on what they say or how they go about it. Anybody can come out and say, I'm pro-Black. I mean, look at Biden. Biden said, if you didn't vote for him, you're not Black. So there's a lot of things that's being said that goes out one ear to the other ear, because we are not educated to make the best proper decision that helps us on our own platforms to move forward. We're always given things, and then because we're given things, someone controls what that narrative of what we're receiving are.
Wow, that's powerful. And
Hey,
we're
Mike.
down to the last few seconds.
Hey, Mike.
And Luvon, go for it, Luvon.
Let me ask one thing. I believe that as a culture, we really don't understand how powerful we are.
Exactly.
If we look at the laws that they're trying to pass and or create, it's only based on our cultural behaviors. So if we as a culture behaved and act and looked and thought and dreamt differently, laws look differently. We are a strong body of folk. We are the role model. We are the soil of the earth. They don't exist without us.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. You know what? I'm gonna let you talk,
real
but
quick.
let me say something to Luvon. Do you know that the black male has become? They are saying that the black male vote is becoming the swing vote.
Do you hear that?
It's becoming a swing vote. The black male vote. If the black male does not vote in Georgia, Stacey Abrams does not have a chance. This is what they're saying. And see, you'll be able to have that and know that in conversations in circles such as these. But Jonas, go ahead. You wanted to say something, brother.
I want to really kind of, because you just gave me chills when he said what he said. And it brought back a memory from a movie I watched way back in the days called Ants. And the grasshopper stood in front of all the ants and said, if we allow these ants to, just like, how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity, if we all united, how easy is it to destroy what's against us? But because they're so good at distracting and dividing, we're attacking the same problems in different directions, when if we came together as a unit and we identified who the problem is and we attacked it as a unit, how can we lose? So I
think that's the point, Jonas. We are a unit. So
Correct.
we have to play their fragmented game. The conversations that we are having are fragmented based on us being a unit.
I agree, but you have to look at it from a 32-year-old that represent the coming and the going, because I remember floppy disk. I remember LimeWire. I remember not having a lot of these things. So if you put 100 blacks in one basket, right, and you give them an NFC and an AFC, they're going to divide. They're not going to say, hey, let's create our own independent group and hold that. That's what's happening. Nobody collectively cannot. You have in different. I'll give you an example here in Collier County. We have a school board election here, right? One black person is running, another black person goes and run, says the same message, that dilutes the votes. So now by us separating the votes, it allows somebody else that doesn't know our pain to come in and grab all the other votes that would have not made sense. But all I'm saying is that we are in a world now where we're not utilizing our 24 hours in 3 equal parts. We are not providing proper education when it comes to voting education. That's leading to a turmoil down the road where I said it in the beginning of the show, habits. After 18 days, you're doing it consistently, regardless if you see your mom, your dad doing it. Influence, you're leaving the household from a habit that you never got to be influenced by somebody else. And then after you had a kid, 98% of what you're about to teach this kid is what you've learned from either your house or social media. It becomes a tradition. Making money, being financially well off is not a tradition in black households. Education is not a tradition. I know more guys that are educated that's been into the jail system than those that has been into any type of education system in the United States. It's about equity, and it's about the 3 things I stated. Expense, how much does it cost me? Cost is not just money, it's time. If we don't invest time into our own stuff and say, hey, okay, I'll give you an example. A guy like me could not live in the Jim Crow era. Why? The minute I walked to this restaurant and you told me I cannot eat here, I'm going to go next door, find out how to build a restaurant next door and do everything that you don't do and open it for the white folks to come and eat, because money does not have color. That's where the problem is. That's what I'm doing.
Well, I gotta tell you, that is a powerful statement. And we are winding down. We're at a minute from 60 minutes as we stated. But there's a couple of comments in the chat I want to address before giving each of you an opportunity to talk about what your persistence, what's your march, what the difference you'll make off this call, to the point of what Oren said, that we're more actionable than just talking, and because this isn't complaining.
No, not at all.
This
Not at all.
is one that allows us to have this and have these conversations. But I saw Dr. McKenzie made comment about, we can repost that comment, that the black male vote being one of a swing vote that's just jurisdictional. Well, there's nothing wrong with it being all over this country, because that's what we need. If we had more of a power, because in Maryland, they don't just depend on us because we say we're Democratic. Maybe we're independent or Green Party, that we look at, we need a class action suit, antitrust violation, because of the two-party system in this country, and one party that we always put our eggs in the basket, having taken us for granted and letting us down, that has an opportunity to make things right, whatever right is described as you all say it is, because that's what Oren said, that we need to call out what's right, what is right, right? That we need to have our vote as a swing vote all over this country, so we aren't taken for granted. So you're right, Dr. McKenzie, it may be regionalized, but maybe it should be strategized so that we have more power, because you can't depend and predict on what it is that we will do or not do. Okay, so let's go to our guest today and give each of you an opportunity, based on this conversation and meaning of this conversation, to what that commission that Senator Rubio and Congresswoman Wilson passed, and Donald Trump signed the bipartisan legislation, said, what are the platforms? What are the policy platforms that each of you say, just one, that they could enact? I said marijuana, moratorium on anyone but black people, black males selling marijuana in this country for 10 years. I said that. And a free education. What is yours? And let's start with Louvain. What would yours be? What is it that we should, as a gender of people, insist that policy look like to benefit our people?
Safe housing.
Safe housing.
There should never, and y'all going to be the first to hear this, so remember this. I just partnered with Master G of Sugar Hill to go through all of the cities across this country to adopt a block, develop it, and potentially give it away to a single female head household.
Safe housing.
That's the most single focus that I have, is housing.
Wow.
It starts with a family.
Mhm.
So that's what we're doing. And we're going to start marketing and branding that as of next month. Y'all the first to hear it.
All right, how about you? What policy changes could we make? What would you insist they do for us as a demographics, as a gender?
Equity in government contracting. There are
Wow.
billions of dollars that are spent. But in Oakland, California, we have, there was a study, disparity study done by Mason Tillman. Out of $500 million+ a year spent in government contracting, 86% of those, 86 cents out of every dollar goes to a white man, male-owned business, and 0.32% goes to black businesses. So break it down in numbers, that's 1,400,000 out of $500 million go to black businesses, which leads up to being able to afford a house. And that's all across this country. Be equitable in the distribution of government contracting so that black people can build their own.
Wow, that's powerful. Warren, what's your one thing, man? We got some wonderful. Hey, Senator Rubio, Congresswoman Wilson, you can stop that We got all the answers for you. You don't have to spend any more money to make a decision on what it is that you need to do for us. Warren, what's yours?
I think I'm going to agree with you, Mike. I think the free education would be a great start. For the purpose of, despite if anyone around can understand, within a family is what I mean, has either had a college education or been able to further their education. I think that if someone desires to want to do it, I think they should be able to, go in that direction and see what it is that lies on the other side, furthering their knowledge. So that's why.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. Jonas, what is yours, Jonas? What is yours?
I think my passion and everything I do lives in corporate citizenship, the understanding of social responsibilities. I own a school in Haiti with 277 kids that are dying in need of an opportunity to get the opportunity a lot of people get for free. But I really, really want to stay in the sector of giving us Black people an opportunity to be able to go back to our own communities and rebuild without the stigma of, are you committing a crime? Is this legit? You need more time to show us, who am I showing? Any white man can start a nonprofit or association across the country and receive funding from just about anyone. A Black man does it, you're building a gang. You're cultivating the next plot to take out somebody. So I look at corporate citizenship and our resources as educated individuals. I want to see more Black men go back to the communities where we come from and educate the next generation that's coming through. Because if the youth is not receiving this, then we're setting ourselves to have these topics again in 10 years.
Wow, powerful, man. And I'd like to thank each of you for being here tonight, because to what we solved in an hour and 5 minutes, because, Marco Rubio and Congresswoman Wilson are going to get this, because it's not difficult. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of the willingness and the desire to make a change in this country. If you say that the inequities from a policy perspective need to be re-examined, Marco Rubio, Congresswoman Wilson, and those others that say that they do in this country, as we know that they do, then these in this Black Forum said education, equal access, moratorium on who sells marijuana, for which you locked up millions of Blacks, or millions of years in time for Blacks having sold marijuana, safe housing, and the ability to go back into our communities and be trenched in our communities to teach our young ones as Black males. In other words, in the prison pipeline, so that we can stay in our communities. You're watching 60 Minutes in Black America. My name is Mike Haney. It's been a great show. Great men, as I said, we could have had 3,000 or 4,000. It's about not the negative, it's about the persistence in the conversation and to what it is that was said coming out of here and then going where. Next week, we've got Catherine Evans that will be talking about domestic violence and breast cancer awareness in America, as this is Breast Cancer and Domestic Violence Month in our country. Thank you so much for joining in. Have a great week and a great evening.